Welcome to the Division III October webinar. I am Lamar Pottinger. I'm the Associate Director here at the NCA for Leadership Development, and I have the privilege and honor to speak to you all today about our diversity grants. Specifically, today, we're going to go over the what, the how, and the why of Division III diversity grants. I've had the privilege of being in this role now for about 2 years, and it has been overwhelmingly transformative for myself and the recipients that I've been able to work with, which are the institutions and conferences of our membership, have been amazing. And the opportunities that are presented through these grants have been fruitful for not only those institutions and conferences, but our association nationwide. So let's start off with the what here. Why are we here today? All right. So the Division III governance and our membership here has 3 grants that we distribute each year. I'll talk about a little bit of our coaching enhancement grant and how that process works. But approximately over $2 million annually is contributed to these 3 division grants here. So we have our Strategic Alliance Matching Grant, we have our Ethnic Minority and Women's Internship Grant, and then we have our Coaching Enhancement Grant as well. What I want to do first is kind of give you a little bit more detail about our Strategic Alliance Matching Grant. So this grant is a fully funded grant in regards to the salary and wages. And when I say fully funded, there's a two-way street in fully funded. So what happens is for these senior level and mid-level administrators, for our year 1 funding, the NCA will contribute 75% of the proposed funding that you all have, right? So per se, if you propose $100,000, which you cannot do, we will provide $75,000. Now, I say you cannot do that because the threshold and the maximum that we will provide on our side is $55,000, which you'll see within our grant guidelines. We also provide $1,500 in professional development, and then $1,000 within the technology fund. So we want to make sure that this individual not only has the salary and wages, but has opportunities for professional development through the funding, and then also some type of a technology as well, knowing that could be for a laptop, a MacBook, if you're in the digital and creative space, using that for cameras, whatever you need to be able to do the job effectively. Then in year 2, we contribute 50%. So now there's more on the institution. We're 50-50 there. $1,500 for professional development again. And then in year 3, we provide 25% of the funding and then another $1,500 for professional development. Now, I want to be clear that this is a 5-year commitment. So the goal when you walk into this Strategic Alliance Matching Grant is to have a plan to be able to fund this position in year 4 and 5. So we get you started in year 1, 2, and 3. We're providing you funding and professional development, but our goal overall in the big picture purpose is for this position to not only be created within your department or enhanced, but also be longer than just the 3 years where we provide funding. And when I get into the application, I'll talk about that process a little bit more here. Now for our Ethnic Minorities and Women's Internship Grant. This grant is given annually, and it's a 2-year grant. We do provide the funding here for the salary as far as $23,660, and then professional development will be $3,000 annually. We usually provide about 23 institutions each year, depending on deferrals from the previous year. And then for the institutions, your contribution is $3,700, apologize there, $3,700 of an in-kind support. So that could mean anything from additional benefits, housing, meals, phone stipend, technology stipend, whatever you all need. But as far as your contribution, it has to be a minimum of $3,700 of in-kind support for this position. This position is different from the Strategic Alliance Matching Grant, where it's more of an entry-level position. So it does say internship, but however, it doesn't have to be an internship. Positions we've had in the past have been maybe a coordinator of marketing and branding, coordinator of student athlete success and leadership. It could be an assistant director for compliance, more of those entry level positions for your young professionals. But again, this does not have to be an internship. And while we don't require you to keep the position past the 2 years, we definitely strongly encourage you again to create this position and then have it be the plan for you to keep it past 2 years after your funding is complete. And then now for our coaching enhancement grant, which this is our second cohort that we will have this coming year. We provide $7,500 of funding for salary and wages, and then we provide $1,500 for professional development each year. So this is a 2-year grant that we provide $7,500 for each of those years for salary and wages, and then we provide $1,500 for professional development, right? So for this coaching enhancement grant, we're really focused on this being assistant coaches. So that would be assistant coaches of any of the sports that are sponsored at your institution and through the NCAA. And then also making sure that this position is primarily coaching. Now, we know there's opportunities for coaching and administration, but we want this position to be primarily coaching. The ethnic minorities internship grant, you can have maximum 25% of the job responsibilities be coaching. And then for our strategic alliance and matching grant, we do not allow any coaching responsibilities within that grant. So that is where focusing on applying for the coaching enhancement grant, if that's what you're looking for, should be your priority. And then our other 2 grants that I mentioned should be focused on administration for the majority, unless you want to do the 25% for that internship grant. Before we get to the how, the coaching enhancement grant is offered. We do a cycle every other year. So we just finished our cycle, and we will have recipients for 2021 through 2023. So we will not do a cycle this year. And then moving forward, we'll have a cycle for 2023 to 2025. Okay. So we do that every other year, not annually, for the coaching enhancement grant.
What about athletic trainers or strength and conditioning coaches?
Great question. So athletic trainers would be considered more of our administrative roles. So that would not be considered underneath the coaching enhancement grant. However, for strength and conditioning coaches, depending on how the job description and application is written, they are eligible to receive the coaching enhancement grant.
How many coaching grants are awarded in each 2-year cycle?
Yeah, so about 10 grants for the coaching enhancement grant will be awarded each cycle. And then just to clarify, for the internship one, it's 23 each year. And then for the strategic alliance matching grant, it's based upon the amount of funding that we have each year. So each individual institution or conference will submit their funding request, and again, the maximum is $55,000. We have a pot of around $700,000, if you will, and we usually try to get as many institutions within that pile, but it just all depends on the funding and who is rewarded those grants.
You talk about funding full-time for the internships, but as you mentioned, we pay $23,300, I think I have the right amount, annually as salary.
Yeah.
How do institutions work around if the question is if it's not close to what the federal full-time wages? Have you heard that before, that the annual salary, there's some concerns with that? How do institutions and conferences work around that?
Absolutely. And I would kick this to you, Louise, but I'll keep this one for the funding. I know that the exempt and non-exempt funding has definitely increased over the last few years. And, it is, I think the last time I checked, this anywhere between, I think, 35,000 and some change there. I could be a little bit off, 1,000 or so. But Really, that's what we provide. So what institutions have to do is that they have to be able to come to the table with a little bit more than that 3,700 to be able to get up to that full-time status, whether it's in California or it's in Pennsylvania or Illinois, whatever state you're in. If you need to make that employee exempt, then that is up to the institution and responsibility of the institution to provide that additional funding to be able to meet that. So the fortunate thing is that usually we're providing majority of those funds when you think about the 23 K, but if you need to provide anywhere from 10 to 12, knowing the different budgets that you all have, you're eligible to do so. But that is how we've advised recipients in the past on how to get around the full-time status as well. And then if you need to have that employee non-exempt, and there's some situations with overtime and hourly and different things like that, it's always dependent on your HR, but we do require that employee that you hire through this grant is a full-time employee with your institution.
Make sure you double check with your HR and your legal before you apply for a grant, I assume.
Yes, absolutely. Great. So the great thing about this timing of the webinar is that the Division III diversity grant applications for the Ethnic Minorities and Women's Internship Grant and the Strategic Alliance Matching Grant opened yesterday. So they are open now. You do have a significant amount of time to get your applications together. The deadline for submissions is January 31st, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. The process after that is a robust process. So what happens is that you'll submit your application. There's a selection committee from your peers, the membership, that will go through those applications and score them. We will then have a meeting to select the candidates and talk through their applications, some misses, some hits, and then we will select those individuals to move forward. In about March or April, you should get notification from our office about your selection. You can then either accept, decline, or defer accepting that grant. Now, deferring means that you get 1 year of a pause per se to be able to utilize that grant. So if for something changed, if something changed from when you submitted in November to when you got accepted in March or April, there's an opportunity for you to defer that grant 1 year. We've seen some institutions do this as well. Okay. So getting back to the how, that's all great on there as far as the selection committee, who facilitates it within the national office. But let's talk about the application and just some key tips here. Yep, stay how key tips and tricks on the application. So the biggest piece here is the why. Why do you want this grant? Why do you need this grant? How will it benefit your institution? How will it benefit your athletics department? And more importantly, how will it benefit your student athletes? All right. So being able to explain, especially when you're looking at administrative personnel that is student facing, or even the coaching enhancement grant, really articulating the why the need is for this grant, right? Whether it is, to have another track and field coach, right? You only got one, maybe two coaches. A third coach would help not only with how you facilitate your practices, but the attention your student athletes would need. With that, then will enhance their student athlete experience, then enhance their student athlete performance, right? Also, the big why that we'll get to in the next slide, but not yet, is your ethnic minority and gender representation. Right? Like, this is why we're here. This is what the purpose of these grants is, to enhance ethnic minority and gender representation within our membership, and specifically within Division III. So being able to really articulate that why outside of the general answers of we have low numbers and we need to increase them, right? There needs to be a little bit more substance to that answer, and be able to have some examples within that statement as well. Then having a thorough job description. So making sure that the job description is thorough and is very direct and clear of what the responsibility and the role of the individual or individuals will be for each grant. So specifically making sure that the administrative grants align with their core area. So if you're looking at an entry level position, making sure that there's entry level roles or responsibilities in there, right? You don't want to, it's great to give those people that responsibility, but we also want to be mindful that it is an entry level position and the salary definitely reflects that. So making sure that the job description reflects the grant and what it needs to be. And the same thing for the Strategic Alliance Matching Grant. The goal is for it to be a mid to senior level position. So the job responsibility should reflect that. We've seen in the past that the Strategic Alliance Matching Grant application or a job description will sometimes be similar to some of our ethnic minority and women's internship grant applications. We want to make sure that that is a clear separation and that you are looking to really bring in someone that can operate at a high level or mid level and be able to hopefully help this person continue to progress through Division III athletics and maybe even be an AD, right? Maybe be a conference commissioner. So we want to make sure that those job descriptions are very thorough and very direct. Your commitment to diversity and inclusion. I'm giving you some tips and tricks here from just past experience with the selection committee. We do not want to see a copy and paste from your website. We can look that up ourselves, right? So we want to be able to know your diversity and commitment statement. That's great, but give examples of your commitment to diversity and inclusion, and be transparent if the commitment isn't the greatest too, right? We want to hear transparency through your application of really, again, what's the commitment like and why are you here? Then the last two is the support. So the support of the mentor, the supervisor, and then financial support. So there's a mentor and supervisor section in the application for all three grants, and we want to know what type of support is this individual going to get from a mentor standpoint, to be able to have someone to look to for guidance as they're in this position, and then their supervisor as well, and what will that look like from a supervision philosophy? Is that monthly meetings? Is that weekly meetings? Is that weekly or monthly performance conversations? Is that professional development opportunities to shadow the supervisor, shadow the mentor? What type of support is this individual going to have? And being able to really articulate that, because what we've seen again is that most of the institutions that apply for this grant may not have people that look like the recipients of the grant in their institutions. And that's very important, but it's also realistic that they probably won't have someone that looks like them. So how are you going to make sure that this person is supported from a mentor standpoint and a supervisor standpoint, and be able to grow within your position? And then financially, we all know that budgets are budgets and there's only so much we can do. But what is your commitment financially, right? You know, for the ethnic minority internship grant, women's internship grant, how are you going to utilize that $3,700 that you have to contribute to this person? And is that all you can give? Can you give more? Can you give housing? Can you give meals? Can you help this individual be able to take their lives up from wherever they're at and be able to move to your town, city, institution, department, and be able to live comfortably, at least close to it, with the funds that are provided? And we obviously know that the funds are minimal or low per se, but how are you going to make sure that this person can function there, right? And what are you going to be able to offer them for them to be able to live through those 2 years or more? And similar to that for the Strategic Alliance and Matching Grant as well, what additional benefits can you provide this individual, right? And what are you requesting? Are you requesting way above the maximum threshold of 55,000, knowing that there is one, or are you requesting somewhere near that threshold, and you're open to receiving the funding that we give to you, and then in addition to that, being able to provide some type of supplement, moving expenses, or phone stipend, whatever it may be, that is within reach in your budget. And then again, just to circle back all of this of just why for our last slide here is enhancing ethnic minorities and gender representation within athletics, administration, and coaching within Division III. And there are a lot of individuals, there are probably some on this webinar that wouldn't be in college athletics, wouldn't be in Division III if it wasn't for the opportunities through this grant. I know we have a couple of colleagues within the national office that have benefited from this grant and now work for either Division III, or they have some type of tie to Division III through our office or through the membership. So again, as you are going through this application process, think of the why always, and knowing that no matter what the financial limitations or financial means there is, the bigger picture is that you're providing opportunities for individuals to get into college athletics and to really continue to enhance the talent within Division III.
For the Strategic Alliance Matching Grant, you mentioned it's a sliding scale, 75, then 50%, then 25%. Is that based on the total compensation or on the salary that is part of the grant request?
Total compensation.
For example, if they say it's a salary of 100,000, but they're going to give an additional 50,000 in benefits, we pay 75,000 on that salary, correct? Versus the whole package.
Correct. So it is based off the salary and wages. So not the total compensation, like the benefits does not play into that equation. Now, if that is the number that you put in there and that includes benefits and salary or wages, then that would be something that you should be aware of. Whatever is the number that you request that's in that calculator and in that application, we are going to provide 75%, 50%, 25% of that within the parameters of our maximum amounts that we will give.
Lamar, you have been a fantastic Division III Diversity Grant Administrator. So I thank you for doing this webinar. To those of you listening, we'll have the webinar PowerPoint and the recording on our Division III webinar webpage on ncaa.org within the next couple of days. So Lamar, I don't know if you have any parting thoughts, or we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity, Luis, and to the membership out there viewing. Really appreciate you all logging in to view the webinar, and I look forward to reviewing and accepting your applications.